Just the other day, my 11-year-old son came to me and said, "Daddy, winter is here and it sure is cold in the morning, waiting at the bus stop before school. Do you suppose I could get a warm winter coat for Christmas this year?" And I said, "Son, if enough people sign up to support the Cyberwire at patreon.com/thecyberwire, maybe we'll be able to get you that warm winter coat." I'm kidding, of course. He doesn't wait in the cold at the bus stop. I make him walk to school. Patreon.com/thecyberwire. Here's a New Year's resolution all organizations should make. Resolve to configure your cloud services for privacy and security. Another cryptocurrency exchange gets hacked, this one by DNS hijacking. North Korea finally says it had nothing to do with WannaCry, but few are convinced. The Lazarus Group continues to be a prime suspect in cryptocurrency theft. Section 702 nears sunset. Wassenaar seems to have become friendlier to researchers. And Kaspersky Lab wants redress in court. And now, a holiday message from our sponsor, Nehemiah Security. 'Twas the night before the board meeting when all through HQ, not a C-level was stirring, even finance was a snooze. Reports were all stacked in the boardroom with care, in hopes that the members would not pull out their hair. The CISO, however, was pacing the ground, mostly because he had no real metrics to sound, and the head of IT, in front of long log reviews, had just settled his brain after full backup number 2. When out of the seam alarms started to fly, they looked at each other and did not know why. Away to the reports they flew like a flash to see which malware showed up as a hash. If only they knew where exploitables lay and could sort them and treat them in an intelligent way. Showing true business impact and real dollars lost, could cyber finally be a justifiable cost? With Nehemiah Security so ready to assist, converting cyber into dollars is impossible to resist. More rapid than eagles, the RQ dashboard it came, instantly upping their cyber risk game. Now dollars, now cents, now recommendations, on threats, on exploits, financial justifications. To the top of the budget the CISO's report flew, smart cyber investments now everyone knew. To hear the rest of the story, visit nehemiahsecurity.com. Major funding for the Cyberwire podcast is provided by Cylance. I'm Dave Bittner with your Cyberwire summary for Thursday, December 21st, 2017. Another big Amazon Web Services S3 bucket misconfiguration has exposed tens of millions of individuals' sensitive personal information. It's worth stressing again that configuring an AWS S3 database is the database owner's responsibility, not Amazon's. Although Amazon has been trying to nudge customers in the direction of better, more privacy and security-conserving configurations. This case involves data maintained by Alteryx, a U.S. analytics firm. The bucket holds information on some 123 million U.S. households, which is as close to all of them as to make no difference. This information comes from the credit bureau Experian, the U.S. Census Bureau, and Alteryx itself. The exposed database was noticed by UpGuard, the security firm that, along with Cromtech, continues to dine out on its discovery of publicly accessible AWS S3 buckets. Some of the data, like those from the U.S. Census of 2010, are already publicly available. But the Experian files, of course, were never meant to be public, although they would have been commercially available from the credit bureau. Alteryx has said in a statement posted to its corporate blog that they secured the databases as soon as they were made aware of the exposure, and that the Experian information that was exposed, quote, is commercially available from Experian and provides some location information, contact information, and other estimated information that is used for marketing purposes. It does not include names, credit card numbers, social security numbers, bank account information, or passwords, end quote. Some are also drawing comfort from the age of the information. The Experian data is from 2013, but the exposure remains unsettling and should prompt some attention not only to cloud configuration, but to organizations' data supply chains as well. Researchers at Google recently announced that they'd found huge numbers of user account information available on dark web markets. Joseph Carson is Chief Security Scientist at Thycotic, and he joins us with his thoughts on the findings.
What Google's reported is that they're actually identifying that in the black market in places like deep web and darknet, that they have found 1.9 billion stolen passwords and usernames. The more concerning part of it is that they're still indicating that 25% of them still work on an active account.
Yeah, do the math there. That's 500 million still active. Those are the numbers. What's your analysis of the reality of those numbers?
I still think the number is quite low, in my honest opinion. And the reason why I say it's low is that it's not surprising either. We're finding this type of data in those locations. For many years, as data breaches have been disclosed and, those data dumps have been made available, hackers have been correlating them anyway. They've been putting them together in order to do large password cracking.
So, looking forward, what do you think is the solution to this sort of thing? Are we heading into a time where we need to look at passwords differently?
I think that there has to be a concept is that, yes, we need to get into, not one is how we create and use passwords. That's for sure is, contributing to the major problem. If we look at over the years about password and even passphrase and other types of best practices, when those best practices were introduced, we were only using between 1 to 5 maybe accounts. So reuse of passwords is quite limited. Now move forward to today, that everything we use, everything on social media, any type of service that we get, they all come with different accounts. And the average person today has more than 30 different accounts and passwords that they need to protect. And we've got into really severe cyber fatigue, which has caused many people to reuse passwords. One account gets compromised, like we've seen over the years, and it's very common that almost every person that's using the internet today has been a victim of cybercrime, that it only takes one of those accounts to be compromised in order to then make the rest of the accounts that they have exposed and compromised, not just on their own personal internet accounts, but those accounts and passwords are the same passwords that they're using for their own internal business work and work life. So we're finding that how we create and use passwords is, and also the evolution of the number of accounts that we have, is definitely contributing and escalating the problem greater. And we really need to get into better capacity and get better understanding about what is the right best practice to deal with many accounts and to also reduce the cyber fatigue.
And so what do you imagine being a solution that could be simple?
A solution to be simple is definitely something that means that humans are not creating passwords. Passwords are a combination of multiple things that they have or who they are. So definitely there has to be some type of good mechanism at actually creating a password that is tied to a human's, whether some elements of biometrics, some things that they have, and those combinations. But security itself needs to be definitely multi-factor and multi-attributes that applies to it. Anything else, so that means that at least access to their digital identity and access to the accounts that then provide, for example, password management functionality. That means that this is the access to the vault that actually then manages your digital footprint for you. And that would be something like managing your passwords and rotations and complexity and additional factors. You don't need to know what's happening in the background. You just need to know how to interact and how to gain access. So definitely password vaults, digital identities, and multi-factor authentications all have a part to play. But we need to find definitely a way that makes them simpler to be used by people. Therefore, that it's not something that's complex. It's just as easy as click and access. And the features, functions, or the biometrics or the attributes that you have make up that security control.
That's Joseph Carson from Thycotic. Turning to matters of national and international policy, in the U.S., Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which authorizes collection of electronic communications by the National Security Agency, will sunset in 10 days if it's not renewed. The intelligence community generally regards Section 702 as an essential authority for intelligence collection. Congressional efforts underway to reauthorize or at least extend the authority are controversial, facing skepticism from elements on both the left and the right. Recent alterations to the Wassenaar cyber arms control agreement continue to receive generally positive reviews. as protections for security researchers are incorporated into the framework. A major challenge in cyber arms control is the dual-use problem. Many tools have both perfectly legitimate, indeed essential uses, and illegitimate, dangerous application as attack tools. Earlier iterations of the Wassenaar Agreement had tended to err on the side of prohibition, much to the discomfiture of the security community. The dual-use problem isn't, of course, unique to cyber. Switches used in photocopiers can be used in nuclear weapons trigger mechanisms. Fermenters can be used to brew beer, but also bacteria for biowar applications. And ballpoint pen ink and mustard gas share some common precursor chemicals. Expect more work on Wassenaar. North Korea has gotten around to denying involvement in WannaCry, calling the attribution absurd. Pyongyang's statement is more measured than normal. As reported by the DPRK's official news agency, KCNA, the Foreign Ministry said today, quote, "As we have clearly stated on several occasions, we have nothing to do with the cyber attack, and we do not feel a need to respond on a case-by-case basis to such absurd allegations of the U.S." End quote. Absurd or not, the allegations are widely credited. North Korea is also drawing suspicion in a number of other cases, especially those involving theft by the country's Lazarus Group. Facebook and Microsoft have been cooperating in takedowns of various Lazarus Group accounts and infrastructure. The group is believed to be concentrating on theft of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in an attempt to redress the chronic financial pinch an underdeveloped economy and wide-ranging sanctions have imposed on North Korea. Pyongyang's operatives are suspected in the altcoin theft that bankrupted the South Korean-based Ubit exchange earlier this week. Attacks on cryptocurrencies continue, and another operation, crypto-to-crypto exchange EtherDelta, was taken offline yesterday after being hacked. Specifically, attackers seized control of EtherDelta's DNS server and redirected traffic to the site, including traffic by customers wishing to trade, to their own malicious server that hosted a bogus copy of EtherDelta's website. Bleeping Computer thinks that EtherDelta appears to have regained control of its DNS server. In any case, the telltale signs of the bogus site, a missing chat button and a missing Twitter feed, seem to have been restored, but so far EtherDelta hasn't given an all-clear, and it's possible the hoods may simply have upgraded their impersonation. Sector information source CoinMarketCap ranks EtherDelta as the world's 85th largest altcoin exchange. It's an interesting one in that it handles a wide variety of cryptocurrencies, and in that it's a coin-to-coin site only. You can't trade fiat money, that is conventional state-backed currency, on it, but you can go from Bitcoin to Ether to Monero. There's no firm attribution yet, and investigation is in its early stages, but there's plenty of eye-rolling in the general direction of Pyongyang. There are also continuing efforts by criminals to install cryptocurrency miners on non-cooperating machines. The latest wave, and it's a fairly big one, has been rolling since Monday, as WordPress sites are subjected to brute force attacks aimed at installing Monero miners on users. Security company WordFence, which specializes in WordPress security, says the attackers are using a combination of common password lists and heuristics based on the domain name and contents of the site that it attacks. The hackers appear to have netted, so far, more than $100,000, although the precise amount they've mined is unclear. Some observers complain that the U.S. has provided no real evidence of North Korean involvement in cyber attacks, and that U.S. attributions shouldn't be accepted at face value. But the other four Five Eyes appear to agree, and Facebook and Microsoft seem to be taking down DPRK operators in the Lazarus Group. There are concerns surfacing now that Pyongyang will seek to disrupt the upcoming Winter Olympics, scheduled to be held in South Korea this coming February. Those worries involve more betting on form than on any solid trackside tips, but we'll surely hear more of them as we get closer to the games. Some of the same observers see the same issue in the U.S. government's ban on Kaspersky security products. The Department of Homeland Security may well have to show some of the evidence that moved it to issue the ban. Kaspersky Lab is suing the department in U.S. federal court, alleging that Kaspersky's been deprived of due process. The proceedings will be followed with much interest. A quick word from our sponsor Cylance and their project to educate over the holiday season, because threats never take a day off, even a federal holiday. They're running down the 12 days of Hacksmas on their blog, and here's the fourth. On the fourth day of Hacksmas, my black hat sent to me 4 vulns with names, 3 ROP chains, 2-factor auth, and a 0-day in SMB. We like vulns with names. Threat actors and operations too, like Cleaver, a serious one Cylance discovered a few years back. If you visit Cylance.com, you can see what their artificial intelligence can do for your security. That's Cylance, and we thank them for sponsoring the Cyberwire. And joining me once again is David DuFour. He's the Senior Director of Engineering and Cybersecurity at Webroot. David, welcome back. We've been seeing in the news a lot lately stories about quantum computing. And today you wanted to address quantum computing, particularly when it comes to artificial intelligence. What do we need to know about this?
Well, David, again, thanks for having me. Quantum computing is fascinating. I think to anyone who's reading about it, it's coming every day. We see new advances that are going to make it more available, because it's very expensive right now in terms of trying to build and generate a quantum computer. You're not going to have it under your desk anytime soon. But with the processing speed that becomes available, it's somewhat mind-blowing what we're going to be able to see in terms of advancements around analyzing large amounts of data, which would help improve, things like AI, and specifically in the field of AI machine modeling. You and I have talked ad nauseum about the difference between AI and machine learning. Mm-hmm. And so I think the AI component, as we simplify the ability to build quantum computers, you'll see vast improvements in the way AI performs in terms of interactions with people. I think more importantly, at first, what you would see is vast improvements in the ability for machine models to be able to do work for us in that machine learning field.
Now, do you suspect with these quantum computers coming online that will lead to a lower cost in processing power?
I think initially no, but over time, yes. Obviously, when new things come out, they cost a lot of money, and you see large universities or groups of universities building them, or large nation organizations funding those types of machines. So I think initially it'll be very expensive, but as with all technology, over time it will come down market.
And then, so eventually, I guess part of the point you're making is that this technology will be available to the bad guys as well.
It will, and I'm willing to bet that what we're going to see initially will be some use for good, but I bet a lot of use for breaking older encryption techniques and just things that could take raw computing power to use in terms of attack. I think you'll see some of that in the initial versions of quantum computing. Unlike the internet when it first came out and computers when they first came out, there were a lot of applications available that we hadn't really explored, and we were using them for more science research. But I think a lot of times now we think, how do we weaponize computer processing power? And I think that you're going to see a lot of that initially with quantum computing.
David DuFour, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, David.
And that's the Cyberwire. It's a special day for us here. By our count, today's show marks the 500th episode of the Cyberwire podcast. Thanks to all of you for making it possible, and to our many guests and partners helping us make the cybersecurity world better informed and hopefully a little safer too. We're still a scrappy little startup, and we're proud of the team we've assembled to bring you the news and information you depend on every day. And of course, thanks to all of our sponsors for making the Cyberwire possible, especially to our sustaining sponsor, Cylance. To find out how Cylance can help protect you using artificial intelligence, visit Cylance.com. The Cyberwire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technology. Our show is produced by Pratt Street Media. Our editor is John Petrick. Social media editor is Jennifer Iben. Technical editor is Chris Russell. Executive editor is Peter Kilpie. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening.